Today my guest is Joe Brinkman. Joe, how are you, sir?
Doing good, man.
You enjoying the Give Camp?
Yes, there's not enough sleep.
Me too. What do you do?
So I'm a technical fellow at DNN Corporation and also one of the co-founders of the company. A lot of what I do is going out to events like this and doing things in the community to help foster the platform, growth of the platform. And I also work on the product team for the DNN itself and manage the release process for the product and help work on defining the roadmap for the product going forward, working with Sean Walker, who was the original creator of .NET and the rest of our sales, marketing team, engineering team, and sort of help guide the roadmap.
Interesting. I think I just heard you refer to .NET Nuke as both a product and a platform. Is that right?
So it's a product, it's a platform, and it's a company.
Okay.
It started out as as sort of dual roles. So it's both a content management system and it's a platform on which we build applications, web applications. So we use the term web application framework because what we find is that out of the box, .NET Nuke can probably do most sites, 80–90% of what they need, and often there may be some additional piece that they want or some custom piece that they want. There's a whole API and a whole platform there that they can build off of, add extensions to add additional functionality that may not be there out of the box. You can think of it like SharePoint or even think of it a little bit like Windows, but think of it as OS for the web, right? So it's a higher level of abstraction over what you would see with like ASP.NET.
Yep.
So it builds up that abstraction and makes it real easy for you to add functionality without having to worry about all the plumbing, like security and logging and how do I deal with the login screen and just the basics that every website's got to have. All of that's taken care of for you, so you can really focus in on the problems that you're trying to solve with that particular web application.
I know exactly what you mean. In fact, for this Give Camp, my team and I created a website for a local charity. We didn't write a single line of code.
Right.
We didn't write a single line of HTML either.
And for most sites, that's the way it should be. The tool is really designed, and the CMS is designed so that people without a lot of technical skills can maintain a website. So you bring in a couple of technologists.
Skills.
Right. So you bring in a couple of technologists
Yep.
to get the site up and running,
Yep.
and to sort of get things configured, and then you can turn it over to a customer and be comfortable knowing that they're going to be able to maintain the site going
That was
forward.
our goal, yeah.
Right. And something like for Give Camp, it's a great platform because customers really feel empowered to maintain their site, and someone who understands, hey, I can edit this page, and they're not afraid of it, then the site really becomes alive to them and becomes a tool that they find really useful. When it's just something that's out there and they don't want to touch it and they don't want to update content in it, content becomes stale, the site loses its value to the customer, and we don't want that. We want them to feel like this is an integral part of their business, because it is. Ultimately, it's their face of their business to the world, and whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit, it's an integral part of who they are and how they present themselves.
Yeah, I think you sort of described it there just now, but you used the term content management system earlier.
Right.
Define what that is.
So in the knowledge management space, what we talk about is how do you take the content from a website as opposed to the design or the UI look and feel. So how do you take the actual content, the words that are on the page that really have value, business value to the customer, right? Maybe it's their mission statement. Maybe it's their opening paragraph or whatever that's on their homepage welcoming people to their website. All of that is content that a customer at some business or organization, writes that and maintains that and may change that over time. And what you need is a system that allows them to manage that and focus in on just that text, where they're not focused in on, some peripheral piece of graphic that's there to make the site look nice, but really has no business value per se, in and of itself, because one image may be equally replaceable with another, or one design may be easily swapped out with another. But the content itself is what customers really care about, because that is their business.
Describe to me, as someone who is about to create a site using this .NET new framework, what do I need to do? Do I need to install something on my local machine, or what?
So it really depends upon where you're going to host your site. If you're going to host the site yourself, there's a little more prep. If you're going
I think
like
it's fair to say most people are hosting it on discount ASP or something like
right.
that.
So when we deal with smaller organizations, they tend to have an outside organization do the hosting for them. Some place like Discount ISP. And so in those cases, typically the hoster will provide a quick and easy get started that integrates with .NET Nuke, understands .NET Nuke, and allows you in just a couple of clicks to actually be up and running with the website.
All right.
Now you may still have to go in into .NET Nuke and go in through the menuing system on .NET Nuke, log in as an administrator, and go and do some configuration to get everything looking the way you want to start adding content to the site. But for the most part, you can be up and running literally in 5-10 minutes without any difficulty.
Okay, so if I'm using a hosted solution or a hosted web space, I don't need to install anything at all on
You don't.
my local machine.
You don't, nothing on your local machine. So like all of the sites that we've done here this weekend have all been done on the host machine, and we use a web browser. We manage and edit all of the content directly in the web browser. You're managing on the actual page that you're building out. So like some content management systems, you actually have a separate administrative side of the application that's wholly separate and apart from what your customer sees. But with ours, we tend to be more integrated. So you're on the page and you point at an element on the page and you say, this is the thing that I want to edit. And you go into edit mode, and then you're editing that thing. And when you click save, you're right back at that screen and you see the edit that you did in place on the screen, which is really a powerful concept for a lot of customers. It makes that connection for them, that this is not just some disconnected piece of data. This is actually part of my page, so I know exactly how it's going to look when it's in that upper right-hand corner or when it's in the footer, and that's a really powerful concept for a lot of customers.
Okay, what if I wanted to host it myself internally?
So if you want to host it yourself, which a lot of our small and medium-sized businesses and even in the enterprise do themselves, right? They may have a host or a server that they've got hosted at some host company, right? They own the server and they rent the server from the host company essentially, or they have it on their own internal network, on their own DMZ. And in that case, you have to make sure that you've got, IIS is installed on your server, so you have to have a server OS. You need to have SQL Server installed 2005 or 2008. And then you just need to have ASP.NET 3.5 with Service Pack 1 or above installed. So most of those, like if you're running the SQL or not SQL Server, Windows Server 2008, you'll have most of that except for the SQL Server, and you'll need to install that yourself. But most of the other stuff will already be pre-installed. So ASP.NET's on there. You'll have to do a service pack maybe for that to make sure you're up to date on service packs. But other than that, a lot of that stuff will be pre-installed if you're running the latest operating system.
Okay.
So.
Okay, and then once you get that's similar to the
Right,
hosted
and then
environment.
right, similar in the hosted environment, you're just gonna to create a website on your local machine using IIS management tools, and you'll unzip our package down to that website, and then it's just hit a URL and you start from a simple wizard that walks you through, the few pieces of information we require, like, how do you connect to the database? What's that database name? What's the name of the the database file here,
Right.
whatever.
Let's talk a little bit about the licensing. This is an open
Okay.
source software, and yet there's a corporation around it. That
Right.
seems kind
So-
of contradictory to me. Explain that.
So, .NET New Corporation was formed about 4 years ago, actually 4 years ago this month. I think was our official incorporation date. So .NET New Corporation was formed with the intention of building a commercial entity on top of this open source product. And the reason for that is open source, we give the product away for free. And we get a lot of volunteer effort to work on the product. But the problem is, as an open source organization, as you grow and grow and grow, much like nonprofit organizations who have volunteers, almost every nonprofit organization of any size that I know of has actual paid staff, right? Once you get to a certain size, managing that with just volunteer resources is nearly impossible to do. It's not impossible, but it's very, very
That's the
difficult.
service that .NET New Corporation is to
Right.
manage this.
So .NET New Corporation manages the open source project, and we provide paid resources so that we know that there's always people available to work on the product. And then the way we pay for that, or what the business is we leverage the platform just like every other third-party vendor that's out there, every other consulting company that's out there. We leverage the fact that we have a platform that you can build on and you can build apps for, and we build our own extensions to .NET Nuke, and we package those extensions up with a standard .NET Nuke install. So we take our extensions that we built, we take the core platform, and we bundle them up and we give them to a customer as a bundled solution.
Okay, that's what you sell, that's the product.
And that's the product we sell. We call it .NET Nuke Professional, and we just launched .NET Nuke Enterprise here in August. And essentially that's it. And we add some support function, or some support offering around that, some training offering around that, and all of those services in addition to that bundled package make up the products that we sell.
The core .NET Nuke framework is still open source. Does that mean that I can contribute to it?
Yes, you can, actually. So we have a number of people. We have what we call the core team, and the core team are all volunteers. Some of them are now work for .NET Nuke Corporation, but they were volunteers before they worked for us. And the core team helps guide and manage the project, and manage a lot of different community aspects of the project. Like we have what we call .NET Nuke Forge, which is where community members can post open source add-ons to .NET Nuke. So we have community members to help us manage that. We have community members that help provide guidance around UI development and around the design of the basic system, and give us some design feedback and things like that. So we've got these various teams. We've got a team that works on reference. So these are the guys who work to help get the wiki up and running, who are working to help make sure that the API is fully documented so that when we generate a release, that now we're able to do things like generate the API documentation to go with it. So they do a lot of the peripheral stuff that we can't do, but that allows them to contribute to the project. And so beyond that as well, we accept code contributions from the community, either through a number of different venues, primarily through our issue tracker. And the one caveat we have to that is that everybody who contributes any significant source changes has to also sign what we call a contributor license agreement, and essentially that gives us dual license or joint ownership of the copyright for that software. So what we don't want to end up with is a situation where 3 or 4 years from now somebody comes back and says, hey, that's my code,
Right.
What are you doing? Why is that in your software? And we can say, no, we have a document that was signed by you that says you assigned us those rights, and we're legitimately using that and reassigning that license under the MIT license that we use for the software.
Mhm.
So we do some things that protect us legally in terms of how we accept contributions, but we do accept contributions. We have a number of people who contribute to almost every release we do.
Okay. Are there resources out there for people to learn more about .NET?
There are.
development and-
There was, I had a blog post that I did just this last week.
What's your
actually
blog?
talking about. So my blog is blog.theaccidentalgeek.com.
Okay.
So I've been blogging there for 7 or 8 years now.
So accidents.
Yeah. Well, it's like a lot of the things that sometimes you don't intend to go into a certain field, but you do just because of your nature. We sort of get drawn into an area. So for me, growing up, I was not about technology growing up, right? It was just something that as I got older in high school and subsequently in college really intrigued me, and it was like, that's where I gotta go.
All right. So
So-
the original question was your blog post is a starting point.
So the blog
Or
post is a
learning.
great starting point for learning. So what I tried to do, and one of the things that you find in open source software is that common complaint is, not enough documentation. Where's the documentation? And because it's open source, you get a lot of community that actively develop different pieces of information, different pieces of knowledge around the platform.
Sure. A lot of
So
those blogs.
it may be through blogs, it may be people who've written add-on extensions, it may be people who've written user guides or user manuals. I know for many years we had a couple of people in the community who regularly updated ERD diagrams, something even as simple as that, is a valuable contribution. What the challenge is that most open source projects face is how do we get all of that knowledge, that may be distributed around the web on all these different websites. How do we collect that and present that to our users in a manner where they can easily find the content, because the content's there, the documentation is there, it just may not always be easy to find. So I did a blog post that lists out, like an installation guide, a basic user administration manual, some more in-depth manuals. We have, for example, we have one of the women who's been working on the project for the last 7 years. Real early on in the project, started working on a user administration guide, and she's been maintaining that guide now for 7+ years. And it started, as a 50 or 100 page guide, and now I think the guide at the last time I checked was up over 1,700 pages.
Wow.
For the administration guide. So obviously this is a pretty lengthy document, and we purchased the rights from her a couple of years ago, and we still make that available. We do sell a printed or a PDF version of that document in our marketplace, but we also make that content available online through our website for free. So if you don't mind reading it online, you can get it for free. If you want to pay for it because you want the PDF and you find that of value, you can go into the store and you can buy the PDF. So we give it to you in a couple of different ways. So things like that, just sometimes it's just a matter of having all the links in one spot. That's really what people need, right? So I linked out to a couple of documents, linked out to a bunch of videos. There's, I think the last time we counted like 800 or 900 videos out on YouTube just on .NET Nuke, and some of those, like we've got this one guy, Aderson Oliveira, who has done in the last 4 or 5 months, I think he's done like 130 some odd videos.
Wow.
And every week, man, the guy just cranks out, and they're little 10-minute videos, they're not anything, he's not doing, 1 and 2 and 3 hour long sessions, they're just 10-minute snippets. How do you use this one feature? How does this one module work? Hey, what's a cool module that the community may have built? That type of stuff. And if what you need is to understand that one feature, a 10-minute video is perfect for that.
Joe, thank you very much for your time.
It was great, Dave. I appreciate it.
Thanks for contributing to the gift camp.
Oh, thank you. It's not technology, but it definitely keeps friends.